Ellie! Ben saw his daughter rip her hand out of his and sprint straight into traffic as headlights sliced through the rain. And instead of screaming when a stranger caught her, the little girl threw both arms around the woman's waist and sobbed, "I found Mommy!" The world did not slow down for Ben. It stopped. Horn blasts, wet pavement, the smell of gasoline and storm water. His heart slammed so hard it hurt. The woman stood frozen in the middle of the crosswalk, one hand on Ellie's back, the other still clutching a paper bag that had split open, oranges rolling through the gutter. Rain soaked her dark hair against her cheeks. She looked down at the little girl clinging to her as if she'd known her forever. Then she lifted her face. Ben forgot how to breathe. Those eyes, that scar just under her chin, that mouth he had kissed goodbye 5 years ago before the police came to his door and told him Lena Carter's car had gone through a guardrail and into the river. No body ever found. No goodbye. Just a wedding ring they pulled from the mud and 100 sleepless nights that never really ended. If stories like this hit something deep in you, subscribe, like the video, and stay with me until the end. Because this one doesn't let go once it starts. "Ellie," Ben whispered again, but his voice came out broken. The woman looked at him like he was the stranger. Her lips parted. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I think she has me confused with someone else." Ben took one step forward, then another. No, not the voice. Not even close. Lena's voice used to dance. This one moved carefully, like every word had to ask permission first. But Ellie squeezed tighter. "No," she cried. "You smell like her." Ben's chest caved in. Because she did. Vanilla and rain. Lena had worn that same perfume every winter because she said it made cold days feel less lonely. The crosswalk signal changed. A cab swerved around them. A man shouted. Ben rushed forward and pulled Ellie back to safety, but the girl fought him with a desperation he had never felt from her before. "Daddy, no! It's Mommy! I know it is!" The woman went pale, not annoyed, not offended, afraid. She looked at Ellie like the child had reached into her ribs and touched a nerve she didn't know existed. "Ma'am," Ben said, trying to keep his voice steady and failing miserably. "Have we met before?" Her answer came too fast. "No." But her hand was shaking. She took a step backward toward the sidewalk. "I should go." Then Ellie said the one thing that made the woman stop cold. "You sing the moon song." Silence. Ben felt his blood turn to ice. The moon song was not a real song. It was something Lena made up the night Ellie had a fever as a baby. 4 nonsense lines and a whispered promise at the end. "You are my moon before the morning." No one knew it but him. No one. The woman blinked hard. "What did you say?" Ellie sniffled. "In my room. At night. Sometimes I hear it in my dreams." Ben knelt in front of his daughter, rain soaking through his jeans. "Baby, where did you hear that?" She pointed at the woman. "From her." The woman stumbled back like someone had slapped her. "I don't know what's happening," she whispered. "My name is Anna." Ben stared at her. Anna. Not Lena. Not his wife. Not the mother of the little girl who had spent the last 3 birthdays blowing out candles and wishing for someone she only knew from photos. But Ben had lived with grief long enough to recognize the cruel shape of hope when it put on a new name. He stood slowly. "Then why do you have my wife's face?" Her eyes widened. For the first time, something in her expression cracked. Not recognition, pain. As if the question itself hurt. I have to go." She turned and walked fast down the sidewalk, almost slipping on the wet curb. Ellie screamed after her. "Mommy!" The woman flinched so violently she nearly dropped to her knees. But she didn't turn around. Ben held his daughter while she cried into his neck, and for 5 full seconds he just stood there, staring at the retreating figure of the dead woman he had loved more than his own life. Then he did something grief had trained him never to do again. He followed her. By the time he reached the corner, she was climbing into a silver sedan parked under a dead street lamp. He caught only 3 things before the car pulled away. A parking permit hanging from the mirror, a white envelope on the passenger seat with the logo Sinclair Arts Foundation, and the driver. A man in a suit, maybe 35, clean jaw, expensive watch, eyes already on Ben in the rearview mirror, like he knew exactly who he was. Then the car disappeared into the rain. Ben got home with Ellie asleep against his shoulder, and a storm inside him he could barely contain. Their apartment was small, warm, and messy in the way real homes always are when one parent is trying to be two. Tiny socks on the radiator, crayons under the couch, a chipped mug on the counter that said, "World's okayest dad." Lena bought him that mug as a joke the week Ellie was born. He sat on the edge of Ellie's bed until she stirred. "Daddy?" "Yeah, baby." Her eyes were heavy and swollen from crying. "Was that really Mommy?" Ben looked at the glow-in-the-dark stars on her ceiling because he couldn't look at her and lie well enough. "I don't know." Ellie nodded once, like that answer hurt, but she expected it. Children always know when the truth is standing outside the room, even if the adults won't let it in. "Did Mommy leave because of me?" Ben felt something inside him tear open. He moved so fast he almost knocked over the night lamp. "No, never say that. Never. Your mommy loved you before you were even born." "Then why didn't she come back?" He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Because he had asked that same question into empty rooms for 5 years. Because loving someone and losing them without explanation is like being sentenced without being told the crime. Because once, after the first year, he got drunk in the kitchen when Ellie was asleep and screamed at Lena's photograph for abandoning them. And the next morning, he hated himself more than ever. "I think," he said carefully, brushing hair from Ellie's forehead, "something very bad happened to Mommy. And maybe she got lost." Ellie looked toward the window. "Then we find her." Ben closed his eyes. That was the problem. He had stopped believing there was anyone left to find. The next morning, he called in sick to the garage and did what he hadn't done in years. He went back to the river. The guardrail had been replaced long ago. Traffic crossed the bridge like nothing sacred had ever shattered there. But Ben still saw the old skid marks when he closed his eyes. Still saw the police lights painting the water blue and red. Still heard Judith Sinclair saying, through perfectly dry eyes, "My daughter is gone, and this is your fault." Judith had hated him from the moment Lena chose him. He was a mechanic's son with rough hands and no pedigree. Lena was Sinclair money, Sinclair schools, Sinclair expectations. She was supposed to marry a man with family assets, not a man who fixed alternators and made her laugh so hard she snorted coffee through her nose. Judith never forgave either of them for that. But hatred was one thing. The face in the rain was another. Ben spent 3 hours digging through old boxes until he found the file he hadn't touched since the search was suspended. Police reports, missing persons bulletins, insurance letters. One blurred article about the tragic presumed death of philanthropist Evelyn Sinclair's daughter, Lena Carter. Not Evelyn. Judith. He barely noticed the typo before another detail snagged his attention. Sinclair Arts Foundation had sponsored the memorial, the same name he saw on the envelope in the silver sedan. His pulse jumped. That afternoon, he took Ellie to school and drove across town to the foundation building. It rose from the city like polished glass and old money. Inside, the lobby smelled like white flowers and expensive silence. A banner announced a children's art showcase that evening, hosted by the Sinclair Arts Foundation. Ben approached the desk. "I'm looking for a staff member, Anna. I don't know her last name." The receptionist smiled politely, the smile rich people wear when they're already preparing to say no. "Do you have an appointment?" "No." "I'm sorry, sir. We can't give out private information." A voice behind him said, "That won't be necessary." Ben turned. Judith Sinclair stood 10 feet away in an ivory coat, elegant and lethal, as if time had touched everyone but her. The same diamond pin glittered at her collar, the same eyes that had looked at him after the wedding like he was a stain her daughter wore on purpose. For a second, neither of them spoke. Then Judith's gaze hardened with icy recognition. Benjamin. He had not heard anyone call him that in Lena's old world since the funeral without a body. "Who is Anna?" he asked. Judith smiled. It wasn't warm. It was surgical. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "You saw her yesterday." "I see many women every day." Ben stepped closer. A woman with Lena's face. That smile disappeared. There it was, a crack. Tiny, but real. Judith dismissed the receptionist with a glance. When they were alone, she lowered her voice. "Leave this building." "Not until you tell me who she is." Judith studied him, then laughed softly, like he'd made a sad little joke. 5 years, she said, and grief still makes men stupid. Ben's jaw tightened. "If you know something..." "I know this." She leaned in. "Whatever woman you saw yesterday, she is not my daughter. And if you create a scene in my foundation, I will have you removed." Ben should have walked away. Instead, he asked the question that had poisoned him for years. "Did you ever stop to think she might have survived?" Judith's expression did not move. That was what terrified him. "She's dead," Judith said. "And if you had spent half as much energy building a stable life for your child as you did chasing ghosts, perhaps Ellie wouldn't be running into strangers' arms." It hit exactly where she meant it to. Ben's fists closed. He wanted to shout, wanted to drag every lie out of the marble floor and pin it to the wall. But he saw the security guard moving, so he swallowed fire, turned, and walked out. That night, he came back anyway. The art showcase was open to the public. Donors floated under warm lights with champagne glasses in their hands, pretending children's paintings mattered more than the cameras. Ben kept to the edges, scanning faces, every nerve live. Then he saw her, Anna, standing near a mural of paper stars, helping a little boy tape up the corner. Same face, same hands. And when she smiled at the child, Ben almost lost his footing. Because that was Lena. Not all of it, Not the old brightness, but the softness, the instinct. Like motherhood had survived somewhere deeper than memory. He moved toward her, but Ellie, who had insisted on coming because Mommy might be scared alone, saw her first. Before Ben could stop her, she broke free and ran across the gallery. Mommy! Heads turned. Champagne stilled in midair. A camera flash popped. Anna spun around just as Ellie crashed into her legs. This time, she didn't pull away. She looked down at the little girl wrapped around her, and something raw passed through her face. Not confusion. Grief. I know you, Ellie whispered, looking up at her. I do. Anna's lips trembled. Ben reached them, breathless. Ellie. But then Judith appeared, and the room got colder. Get away from her, Judith said sharply. Ellie clung tighter. No! Anna looked from Judith to Ben like the walls were rearranging themselves in front of her. Judith, she whispered. Ben caught it. Not Mrs. Sinclair. Not ma'am. Judith. Like they knew each other far too well. Judith's voice turned velvet for the crowd. I'm so sorry, everyone. There's been a misunderstanding. Ben laughed once, hollow. You call this a misunderstanding? What would you call it? Judith snapped. A child confused by a grieving father who never learned to let go? A murmur rippled through the room. Public humiliation had arrived exactly on schedule. Ben felt every eye land on him. Poor widower. Obsessed ex-son-in-law. Unstable mechanic crashing a donor event with his emotional little girl. Then Judith delivered the knife. This woman is Anna Hayes, director of our youth program, and she is engaged to be married. The man from the silver sedan stepped forward. He put a hand on Anna's shoulder. Daniel. Clean suit. Controlled smile. Predator calm. Anna looked like she wanted to disappear out of her own skin. Ben stared at the ring on her finger and felt rage flicker so bright he almost blacked out. Engaged. To him. Ellie looked up at Anna's hand and went very still. You have Daddy's ring, she said. The room fell silent again, because Anna's engagement ring was not Ben's. But the necklace around her throat was. A small gold half-heart. Lena had worn the complete heart for years, split in two after Ellie was born. One half on Lena's neck, one half on Ellie's baby bracelet. Ben had buried Ellie's bracelet in a memory box after the clasp snapped. Now the matching piece was hanging on the throat of a woman named Anna Hayes. Ben stepped closer. Where did you get that necklace? Anna touched it instinctively, startled. I've always had it. No, he said. My wife did. Judith signaled security. Enough! 2 guards moved in. Ellie started crying. Don't make Mommy go! Anna closed her eyes like the word physically hurt. And then, so quietly Ben almost missed it, she said, Please don't call me that unless you're sure. It wasn't denial. It was fear. Security grabbed Ben's arm. Sir, you need to leave. I'm not leaving her with you, he said, eyes locked on Judith. Big mistake. 3 phones rose at once. Someone was already filming. Daniel stepped in front of Anna like a hero in a story that didn't belong to him. You're frightening her. Ben shoved his hand away. That was all Judith needed. Call the police!
By the time Ben was pushed out onto the sidewalk, Ellie was sobbing hysterically, and somewhere behind the glass, Anna had both hands over her mouth, staring at him like she was watching her own life crack open. The video hit the internet before midnight. Single dad disrupts charity event. Grieving child mistakes staff member for dead mother. Obsessed widower escorted out. Ben didn't sleep. At 2:14 in the morning, he found Ellie standing in the hallway with her blanket wrapped around her shoulders. "Daddy?" He sat up immediately. "What's wrong?" She held out his phone. She had seen the comments. "Crazy dad. That poor woman. Teach the kid boundaries." Ellie's voice shook. "Did I ruin it?" Ben pulled her into bed and held her so tight she squeaked. "No. Listen to me. You did nothing wrong." "But everybody says—" "I don't care what everybody says." She was quiet for a long time. Then the question came, small enough to kill him. "What if she remembered you, but not me?" Ben turned away so she wouldn't see his face collapse. The next day, his garage manager told him not to come back until the situation online cooled down. By noon, a family court envelope was at his door. Temporary restraining order. Keep away from Anna Hayes. Requested by Daniel Mercer and Judith Sinclair. Ben almost laughed at the cruelty of it. They took his wife once.
Now they were trying to make it illegal for him to look at her. He was halfway through calling every lawyer he could afford when an unknown number texted him a single sentence. She was never supposed to see the child. Below it came an address. Ben was there in 20 minutes. It was a church basement on the east side. Empty except for a woman in her 60s sitting under a flickering fluorescent light, hands wrapped around a coffee cup. "I'm Marta," she said. "I was a nurse at Rosewood Recovery Clinic." Ben didn't sit. "Who is Anna Hayes?" Marta looked him dead in the eye. "Lena Carter." The room tilted. Ben caught the back of a folding chair before he fell. Marta kept going because maybe she knew if she stopped, he never would. 5 years ago, a woman was brought into our clinic after a near drowning. No ID, head trauma, memory damage, night terrors. 3 weeks later, Judith Sinclair arrived with legal papers and private security. She identified the patient as her daughter and took full control of her care. Ben couldn't feel his hands. "Why wasn't I called?" Marta's face changed. That was when he knew the next part would ruin him. "Because your mother-in-law told Lena her husband had abandoned the search after the baby died." Ben made a sound he had never heard come out of a human throat. "No." "She told you Lena was presumed dead," Marta whispered. "And she told Lena her old life was gone, that remembering it would destroy her recovery." Ben staggered back a step and hit the wall. Ellie dead. To Lena, Ellie had been dead this whole time. His daughter had spent years wishing for a mother who was grieving a child she thought she buried. Marta slid a flash drive across the table. "I kept copies. Therapy notes, intake records. One audio file. I should have gone to the police earlier. I was afraid." Ben stared at the drive like it might explode. "Why now?" "Because I saw the little girl at the gala." Marta's eyes filled. She looked exactly like Lena looked in the photo she kept hidden under her mattress. Ben took the drive with shaking fingers. "Photo?" Marta nodded. "A hospital picture. You, Lena, and the baby. Someone tried to remove it from her room. She kept finding it." A knock sounded upstairs. Marta's face drained. "You need to go." Why? Because I made one mistake already. Footsteps, fast. Ben moved toward the side exit just as the basement door opened. Daniel Mercer stood at the top of the stairs, smiling. There it was, the betrayal hidden in a polished face. Marta whispered, "I didn't tell him, I swear." Daniel descended slowly, hands in his pockets. "You really should stop digging, Ben." Ben shoved the flash drive into his sock without breaking eye contact. "You knew." Daniel tilted his head. "I knew she was fragile. I knew her mother did what she thought was necessary. I knew a man with your history would only drag her backward." "My history?" "You're angry, impulsive, broke. Online, they already believe the worst of you. That helps." Ben launched at him. The table went over. Coffee splashed. Daniel stumbled, but he'd expected rage. He used it, ducked, and let Ben crash into a chair. Two men appeared behind him. Private security, of course. Daniel straightened his collar. "If you contact Anna again, I'll make sure you lose custody of Ellie." He leaned closer. "She's happy with the life she has now." Ben spat blood onto the floor. "Then why does she look terrified every time she sees my daughter?" Daniel didn't answer. That was answer enough. 3 nights later, Ben did the one thing he swore he never would. He parked outside Anna's townhouse after dark and waited. Not to threaten her, not to beg, just to see if there was still any trace of Lena in the way she moved when nobody was watching. At 10:43, the front door opened. Anna stepped onto the porch alone, wrapped in a cardigan, bare feet on cold stone. She sat on the top step and cried into both hands like she had been holding it in all day. Ben almost stayed hidden, but grief had already cost him too much. "Lena." She looked up sharply. For one horrible second, fear flashed across her face. Then exhaustion won. "Don't call me that." "It's your name." She stared at him, then out into the street. "I had a dream last night." Ben stayed still. "There was a yellow room," she said. "Stars on the ceiling. A baby laughing. And somebody singing." His throat closed. "Ellie's room used to be yellow." Anna's eyes filled immediately, as if some part of her body recognized the truth before her mind could fight it. "My mother says you're dangerous." Ben laughed under his breath. "Your mother says a lot of things." She stood up suddenly. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Make me doubt the only person who's been there for me." That landed, because Ben had spent years hating Judith. He had not spent enough time imagining what it meant that Lena had spent those same years depending on the woman who stole her. Anna hugged herself tightly. "When I met your daughter, something happened to me. It felt like loss. So big I couldn't breathe. And when she cried, I wanted to pick her up before I even thought about it." Ben stepped into the porch light. "You used to do that with every kid." She looked at him. He kept going, voice rough. "You cried during diaper commercials after Ellie was born. You hated mushrooms, but lied for 3 months because my dad's stew had them and you didn't want to hurt his feelings. You cut your own bangs once at 2 a.m. and blamed the dog. You sing when you're nervous, but only the first line because you forget lyrics." Anna's face crumpled. Because nobody invents details like that unless they have lived inside your life. "Stop," she whispered. "I can't." "Please." "You asked me once what scared me most about losing you. It wasn't death." His eyes burned. It was the idea that one day you'd be alive somewhere, and I wouldn't be able to reach you. She made a strangled sound and covered her mouth. Then a male voice cut through the dark. Anna. Daniel was standing in the doorway. He had probably been listening. Of course he had. Anna turned, wiping her face fast, ashamed of tears that weren't even hers alone. Daniel descended the steps with practiced calm. You need to come inside. Ben saw something change in her then. Not courage, not yet. Just discomfort. The kind that begins when a cage door is suddenly visible. Did you know? She asked him quietly. Daniel's answer came after a beat too long. Knew what? That was enough. Anna looked from him to Ben, and for the first time she seemed to realize she was standing between two stories and one of them had lied. The next morning, she was gone. Judith had put her on a plane. That was the message Daniel wanted Ben to receive. Finished. Over. Too late. But Daniel made one mistake. He sent it from Anna's phone. And 30 seconds later, a location ping lit up on Ben's old family sharing app, something Lena had never disabled because nobody thought a dead woman needed privacy settings. She wasn't at an airport. She was at Judith's lake house outside the city. Ben drove like a man with fire under his skin. Halfway there, his phone rang. Ellie's school. His blood froze. She was missing. Not kidnapped. Worse. She had overheard the receptionist say, maybe her mother finally came back, and disappeared after lunch with her little rabbit backpack and a note in her desk. Taking Mommy her moon song. Ben nearly drove off the road. There was only one place Ellie would go. The river overlook where he took her every year on Lena's birthday to leave flowers. By the time he reached the old pedestrian pier, thunder was cracking open the sky. And there she was, small, blue coat, standing at the very edge of wet wood with the river raging below. Not alone. Anna was running toward her from the opposite side, hair loose in the wind, no coat, no shoes, screaming a name she should not have known. Ellie! Ben stopped dead. Because she didn't say, the girl. She didn't say, wait. She said Ellie, with a mother's terror. Ellie turned too fast, her shoe slipped, and her tiny body pitched sideways toward the broken railing. Everything happened at once. Ben shouted, the boards groaned, and Anna lunged. She hit the deck hard, caught Ellie's wrist with one hand, and slammed her own shoulder into a post before the river could take them both. Ellie screamed. Anna held on. Baby, look at me, she cried. Don't let go! Ben reached them and dropped to his knees, dragging Ellie back over the rail with both hands. The little girl flew into his chest, sobbing. Anna stayed on the ground, breathing hard, staring, not at Ben, at Ellie, at the rabbit backpack half open, where a tiny gold baby bracelet had fallen out onto the planks. The other half heart. Anna picked it up with shaking fingers. Then memory hit her like lightning. Ben saw it happen. Her face drained, her pupils widened, and suddenly she was somewhere else. A yellow nursery, a baby on her chest. Judith's voice in a white room saying, the infant didn't survive. Ben sobbing in a hospital chair. The bridge, the river, hands pulling her from black water, weeks of pain, a photograph missing from her drawer. Daniel saying, the past will only hurt you. And the lullaby, the stupid little moon song she wrote when she was too tired to think and too happy to care. Anna, Lena, looked up at Ben with absolute devastation. You let me bury her. He shook his head violently. No, Lena, no! But she wasn't talking to him. Judith's voice came from behind them. I did what I had to do. They turned. Judith stood at the end of the pier, umbrella in hand, Daniel beside her, both framed by stormlight like two people who had mistaken control for love so long they no longer knew the difference. Lena rose slowly. Rain ran down her face, but she looked carved out of something harder now. Judith stepped forward. "You were broken. He would have broken you further. You told me my daughter was dead. I saved you." Lena laughed once. It was the ugliest sound Ben had ever heard. "You stole 5 years of my child's life." Judith's composure slipped for the first time. "I gave you peace." "No," Lena said, voice shaking with fury. "You buried me while I was still breathing." Daniel moved in. "Lena, please, you're overwhelmed. Let's go home." She turned on him so fast he actually stepped back. "You knew." He said nothing. That was his confession. And then Ben did the thing Judith never thought he would have the patience to do. He didn't attack. He didn't scream. He pulled out his phone and pressed play. Marta's recording. Judith's own voice filled the storm. "She'll forget him faster if the child is gone too. Tell her the baby died." Nobody moved. Daniel closed his eyes. Judith went white. Lena made a sound that was half sob, half rage, and for one terrifying second, Ben thought she might throw herself at her mother. Instead, she walked past everyone and knelt in front of Ellie. The little girl was trembling so hard her teeth chattered. Lena touched her face like someone handling a miracle they don't deserve. "I am so sorry," she whispered. "I am so sorry." Ellie searched her face through tears. "Are you really my mommy?" Lena broke. Not elegantly, not beautifully. The kind of breaking that comes from finding out your whole life was stolen in clean, expensive rooms by the people who said they loved you. "Yes," she cried. "Yes, baby. I'm your mommy." Ellie threw herself into her arms, and Lena held her with both hands, like if she loosened even one finger, the world might take her again. Sirens sounded in the distance. Judith looked at Ben with pure hatred. "You think this is a victory?" Ben looked at Lena holding their daughter, soaked to the bone, wrecked and alive. "No," he said. "I think this is the truth." Judith was arrested on the pier before the rain even stopped. Daniel tried to negotiate. Nobody listened. But the real ending didn't happen there. It happened weeks later in the ordinary places. In therapy offices where Lena had to remember without drowning in it. In Ellie's bedroom where Lena sat on the floor and asked permission before touching old drawings she should have seen years ago. In the kitchen where Ben burned toast because his hands still shook every time he turned and found Lena standing there for real. Healing didn't arrive like a movie. It arrived awkwardly. One apology at a time, one memory at a time. One night, Ellie had a nightmare and called out, and both Ben and Lena ran to her room so fast they collided in the doorway and almost fell over. Ellie sat up, looked at them, and laughed for the first time in days. That laugh saved something in all of them. Later, when Ellie finally fell asleep again, Ben stood in the hallway while Lena tucked the blanket under their daughter's chin with trembling fingers. "She still reaches for you in her sleep," he said. Lena nodded, crying quietly. "I don't know how to earn that." Ben leaned against the wall, tired in every bone. "You don't earn being loved by your kid." She looked at him. What about you? That one stayed between them for a long moment, because love is not the same as trust after a wound this deep. Because being found again doesn't erase being lost. Ben stepped closer anyway. I don't know yet, he admitted, but I know I stopped burying you the second she ran into your arms. Lena covered her mouth as tears spilled over. He glanced through the cracked bedroom door at Ellie sleeping under glow-in-the-dark stars. The rest, he said softly, we can take slow. Months later, at Ellie's school recital, the lights dimmed and the children stepped onto the stage in crooked paper crowns. Ellie spotted her parents in the front row, Ben on one side, Lena on the other. Not perfect, not finished, not easy, but there. She grinned so wide the whole audience laughed. Then, in the middle of the song she was supposed to sing with the others, Ellie leaned toward the microphone and whispered, I found her. The room melted. Lena reached for Ben's hand in the dark. This time, he let her hold it. And for the first time in 5 years, none of them were staring at the place where love had vanished. They were finally looking at the place where it came back.